So pork in apples, cider, and that's a hard cider, British hard cider, and cream. And if there's one herb that really binds all those things together, it is sage. So I've got there a couple of pinches of fresh sage. You can use a pinch of dried sage in its place. I've got a couple of cloves of garlic. Don't want garlic to overpower this one, but I do want garlic to be present because that goes well with the pork. The other things you'll need is I've got a fairly large sized onion which I've chopped up, and in terms of volume you want the onion to be about half that of your pork, somewhere in that sort of ballpark. I've got here a Bramley apple which I've cut up, I've peeled and cut it up, and I'm just letting that sit in water and a little splash of vinegar to stop it browning on me. Pork and apples go so well together. Pork, apples, onions, so well together. Pork, apples, onions, garlic, so well together. And then when you add in the sage, and you don't need a lot, you don't want this to taste of sage, you just want it to, that couple of pinches, because sage brings out the flavour of all these things, and in such a great way, as you'll find out. The other thing I neglected to mention was the cream, which is I've got a 300ml pot, but I'll probably be using about half of that at the most, and maybe a little swirl for a garnish. The pork is 700 grams. So into a hot pan you want a couple of tablespoons of oil. I'm using olive oil, use whatever oil you like. And I'm going straight in with the meat because I want to get that sealed, and emphasis on sealed in case the meat searing police are watching. Sealed just means sealed, and seared means it's browned, and I don't want seared because this is not a brown dish. I just want to seal it. So I just keep that stirring and frying over high heat. This dish originates in Normandy in France, where they've got lots of great pork, they've got lots of great apples, and they have plenty of great cider and Calvados, which is wonderful. It's a brandy made from apples, for those who don't know. So I'm just going to go in there and turn the ones that haven't had any heat. Just want to seal it. So there you see the meat is just sealing off, and at this stage you can introduce the onions, the garlic and the sage. Then I give it a stir in and continue cooking that over high heat. As soon as the garlic and the sage hit that, it just gets very special. And all we do now is we continue stirring and frying until the onions begin to turn translucent. And when they do that, they start shipping their pungent flavours into the sauce, and the onions themselves, the onion pieces themselves, turn rather sweet, which is another bonus. You can use any cut of pork you like. I prefer to use shoulder because it has a lot of flavour and it has just the right amount of fat for a dish like this. But you can use any cut of pork you like, or you can use turkey leg if you don't eat pork. This dish works very well with turkey leg. I've done it myself on a couple of occasions and it's turned out great. Not exactly the same, but still great, if you know what I mean. So you can understand why this is a very popular dish in Normandy in France. So you'll see the onion has started to turn translucent and the pork is starting to ship a little bit of its liquid, so we can go in now with the apples. This is a creamy dish, we don't want it to be browned. In go the apples, and in goes, let's start with cider. This is a British cloudy cider. that's the whole bottle in there. That's the whole, what's that, 500 mils. So that's half a litre of cider in there. And then I'm just going to cover that now to bring it to a boil, cover it and simmer it. So there you see it's coming up to a boil. So I need now to turn it down to a low simmer. Make sure everything's pretty much submerged in there. Cover it. And I want to simmer that for at least about 40 minutes to an hour. So I'll get back to you when that's ready. Okay, let's take a look at this. It's very nice. It's been simmering away. Now I'm going to do a taste test. Yeah, that's really good. Good base flavour, like you would expect from pork and apples, and sage and garlic. I'm going to salt that a little bit, and I'm going to put in some white pepper. And there's a reason for white pepper. It's because we don't want to have black speckles in the sauce. So I'm going to stir that in. And with a clean spoon, going in for another taste test. Yeah, that's right. That's bang on the money. Wonderful flavour. Okay, at this stage I want to thicken it and stabilise the sauce. So I'm going to turn the heat up a couple of notches just to get it cooking fast again. And I'm going to use 2 heaped teaspoons of corn flour or cornstarch mixed with a little water. I'm going to put that in there and I'm going to give that a stir. Now it's all very important that we stabilise this sauce before we add any cream, because with all the acid in those apples we don't want to put in cream at that moment to split the sauce. So first of all we've got to get this stabilised, and that's where we are right now. So turn the heat up and allow that to thicken. So once you've got it to the thickness you desire, now's the time you can add your cream, because the sauce is already stabilised. If you add the cream too early, the cream might split in the sauce. So I'm going to pour in about half of that carton. And half of that carton is about 150 ml. It's the 300 ml carton. So somewhere in the region of 150 mils of cream. And we let that cook a little bit longer. So I've got it to this stage, and I'm going to add a little bit more cornstarch to corn flour to thicken it a little more. So I'm going to mix up another teaspoon of cornstarch, and add that to it. Okay, there are way too many variables to make this an exact science, so you just have to run with it and get to the stage you want it to be. So there it is, coming back to the boil again. I'll turn that down to a low simmer now, and I shall keep that covered, and then I'll turn it off about 5 minutes before I want to serve it. So I've got a plate with some lovely creamy mashed potatoes on it and some lovely green beans. And now I'll pour on the beautiful pork with apples and cream. Bit of extra gravy over the mash. And then, just to make it all the more luxurious, a swirl of cream on top. And a little pinch of fresh sage. Gorgeous. Enjoy.